in the shadowed heart of an ancient city, where the dust of centuries clung to crumbling stone and the whispers of history echoed through narrow alleys, a discovery was made that would shake the foundations of faith and scholarship alike. It was the year 2025, and the world stood on the brink of transformation, teetering between technological marvels and spiritual unrest. In a forgotten corner of Jerusalem, beneath the ruins of a long-abandoned synagogue, a team of archaeologists uncovered a hidden chamber sealed for nearly 2 millennia. Within it lay a collection of scrolls, their parchment brittle but intact. Their words written in languages that had not been spoken in centuries. These were no ordinary texts. They were the lost writings of a forgotten sect deemed too dangerous, too revolutionary, or too enigmatic to be included in the canonical scriptures of Judaism and Christianity. This is the story of those scrolls, the truths they held, the reasons they were buried, and the profound questions they raise for our modern age. The air was thick with the scent of earth and time as Dr. Miriam Adler, renowned historian of ancient, religious texts, descended into the subterranean chamber. Her team had been excavating the site for months, driven by a cryptic reference in a 3rd-century rabbinic text to a hidden treasury of the covenant. Buried beneath the city, the chamber was small, its walls lined with crude shelves carved into the stone. On those shelves rested clay jars sealed with wax that bore the faint imprint of a symbol, a flame encircled by a serpent. Miriam's heart raced as she carefully opened the first jar, revealing a tightly rolled scroll. The parchment crackled under her gloved fingers, and as she unrolled it, she saw lines of Hebrew, Aramaic, and an unfamiliar script that seemed to blend elements of both. The scrolls were unlike anything she had seen before. They were not part of the Dead Sea Scrolls, nor did they align with any known apocryphal texts. They bore titles such as the Book of the Silent Flame, the Covenant of the Veiled Light, and the Lamentations of the Exiled Prophet. Each scroll was a window into a world of belief that had been deliberately erased from history. As Miriam's team cataloged the find, they realized they had stumbled upon a collection that challenged the very foundations of the biblical canon. The discovery sent ripples through the academic and religious worlds. Scholars debated the authenticity of the scrolls, while religious leaders expressed unease at the implications of their contents. The texts spoke of a sect known as the Keepers of the Silent Flame, a group that existed on the fringes of Second Temple Judaism. Around the time of the Babylonian exile, they were mystics, visionaries, and rebels who believed they had been entrusted with divine revelations to sacred and to dangerous for the masses. Their writings were a blend of prophecy, mysticism, and radical theology, offering insights into the nature of God, the cosmos, and humanity's place within it. To understand the scrolls, one must first understand the keepers themselves. According to the introductory scroll, the Covenant of the Veiled Light, the Keepers were a secretive order founded by a figure known only as the Exiled Prophet. This enigmatic leader, possibly a contemporary of Jeremiah or Ezekiel, claimed to have received visions during the Babylonian captivity that revealed the hidden face of God. Unlike the prophets whose works were preserved in the Hebrew Bible, the Exiled Prophet taught that divine truth was not meant for all, but only for those who could bear the weight of the unseen. The Keepers believed that God's revelation was multifaceted, like a flame that burned with many colors. Argued that the scriptures accepted by the mainstream priests and scribes were only a partial reflection of divine truth, or a shadow of the flame. Their own texts, they claimed, contained the fuller light truths about creation, redemption, and the destiny of humanity that were too complex or unsettling for the established religious authorities. One of the most striking aspects of the Keepers' theology was their emphasis on the silent flame, a metaphor for the divine presence that existed beyond human language and comprehension. Unlike the fiery theophanies of Moses or Elijah, the silent flame was a still, quiet force that could only be perceived through contemplation and spiritual discipline. The Keepers taught that this flame dwelled within every human soul, waiting to be awakened through acts of compassion, self-sacrifice, and the pursuit of wisdom. But their teachings were not without controversy. They challenged the rigid hierarchies of the temple priesthood, asserting that divine communion was accessible to all, not just the elite. They also spoke of a cosmic battle between light and shadow, not unlike the dualism found in later Gnostic traditions, though rooted in a distinctly Jewish framework. These ideas, coupled with their secretive practices, made the keepers a target of suspicion and hostility. As Miriam and her team translated the scrolls, they uncovered a wealth of material that both complemented and challenged the canonical scriptures. The Book of the Silent Flame, the centerpiece of the collection, is a mystical treatise on the nature of God and the soul. It describes creation not as a singular event, but as an ongoing process, with humanity as co-creators tasked with weaving the light of the silent flame into the fabric of the world. The book introduces the concept of the Neshama Eliana, the supreme soul, a divine spark within each person that connects them to the eternal. Unlike the canonical Genesis, which focuses on God's sovereignty, this text emphasizes human agency and responsibility in the divine plan. It also contains a series of meditations and rituals designed to awaken the supreme soul, including chanting, fasting, and communal storytelling, suggesting a highly experiential form of spirituality that contrasts with the legalistic traditions of mainstream Judaism. The Covenant of the Veiled Light outlines the history and mission of the keepers. It recounts the exiled prophet's vision of a veiled light that descended from heaven, revealing a covenant not of laws, but of inner transformation. Covenant called for a life of radical love and justice, even in the face of persecution. The text warns that the keepers' teachings would be misunderstood and suppressed. As the world prefers the shadow to the light, it also contains prophecies about a coming figure, referred to as the bearer of the flame, who would unite the nations and restore the world to its divine purpose. This figure bears similarities to the Messiah of canonical scriptures, but is described in more universal terms as a teacher and healer rather than a king or warrior. The Lamentations of the Exiled Prophet is perhaps the most emotionally resonant of the scrolls, a poetic outpouring of grief and hope. Written in the voice of the exiled prophet, it describes the pain of exile, the betrayal by religious authorities, and a longing for divine restoration. Using vivid imagery like the heart of the earth weeps with the tears of the stars, and the light of God is hidden in the shadow of our sorrow. Unlike the canonical Lamentations, which focus on the destruction of Jerusalem, this text speaks of a universal exile, spiritual disconnection from the divine that can only be healed through collective awakening. The Visions of the Seven Veils presents apocalyptic visions tied to the lifting of veils that obscure divine truth. It foretells a future where nations are judged by compassion and justice, not power or wealth, predicting upheaval followed by a new dawn where the silent flame shines brightly. This shares similarities with Revelation, but focuses more on cosmic renewal than divine wrath. The Songs of the Forgotten is a collection of hymns and prayers reflecting the keepers' worship practices. These lyrical and personal texts address God as an intimate presence, the flame that warms the heart in the cold of night, emphasizing forgiveness, unity, and reconciliation over retribution. The question that haunted Miriam and her team was why these texts were excluded from the biblical canon. Historical records suggest the keepers were branded heretics by Second Temple authorities. Their scrolls declared Geneset to be hidden or destroyed for being divisive and dangerous. Their emphasis on personal communion with the divine undermined the priesthood's authority. Their universal covenant challenged Israel's exclusivity, and their cosmic renewal vision clashed with expectations of a warrior Messiah. The exclusion was also a matter of power. Temple authorities and later Christian councils sought to standardize belief for unity, rejecting texts that introduced complexity or encouraged individual spiritual exploration, as Miriam presented her findings. The scrolls sparked debate. Some dismissed them as forgeries. Others saw them as a missing link in religious thought. Their relevance to the modern world was profound. The Book of the Silent Flame inspired personal meaning and social justice. The Covenant of the Veiled Light fostered interfaith dialogue. The Lamentations spoke to spiritual exile in a secular age, and the visions offered hope for collective renewal. Yet they raised questions. Why were these voices silenced? What does their rediscovery mean for the canon's authority? How can believers reconcile their universalist teachings with exclusivity? For Miriam, the discovery was a spiritual odyssey. The scrolls touched her struggles with faith, her questions about God, and her longing for a just world. Reciting a passage from the Songs of the Forgotten, in the silence of the heart, the flame speaks. In the darkness of the world, the light endures. She saw the divine in acts of kindness and courage. The scrolls were a living testament to the enduring search for truth, a reminder that faith evolves with each generation's questions. The scrolls became a catalyst for change. Religious communities revisited their scriptures. Scholars sought connections to other marginalized groups, and activists drew inspiration from the call for justice. The keeper's message, though silenced, had survived, waiting for a time when the world was ready to hear it. Their legacy challenged believers to embrace the silent flame within, to seek justice and compassion, and to believe in a future where the divine light shines anew, uniting humanity in a shared pursuit of the sacred.